Or good morning, everyone. I'm just going to give about 30 seconds more here for additional people to join, and then we can go ahead and get started. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar today, Work Smarter with Workday Slides. I'm very excited to be presenting this functionality to you all. I think it's really exciting, and I look forward to presenting this so you can learn more about it and review slide setup and some other resources that you can use. And there is a Q&A function in this webinar. You can go ahead and enter your questions throughout. I'll probably wait till the end to start taking questions. We've got a lot to get through. So I'll try to answer some questions at the end, but if I don't get to them, I will follow up with you and get you answers to your questions. So with that quick introduction, my name's John Milkovich. I'm in our Workday Financials practice here at ERPA. I've been in the Workday ecosystem for about 7 years now. Started off as a consultant, was then moved. I moved over as in a customer capacity, helping implement Workday Financials for a few different organizations, and now I'm back into consulting. A little bit about ERPA. We are one of Workday's newest consulting partners. We got our partnership in June of this year. We specialize in post-production assistance or deployments. So phase X deployments, our AMS support. That's kind of our bread and butter. And we actually use Workday ourselves. We went live with Workday Payroll, HCM, and Financials a couple years ago. So we're actually looking at ways to implement slides for our own organization. I actually was meeting with the VP of Finance earlier today, going through how we could start using this at ERPA. So I'm going to get started here with a slides overview. So what is it? It is a presentation application within Workday, very similar to Google Slides or PowerPoint. You're able to insert data from Workday into the slides. You're also able to incorporate people analytics stories if you leverage that functionality on the HCM side. You can insert text, images, charts, tables, and this was rolled out in June of this year. And it's free. It's generally available to all customers that have an HCM or financial SKU. So it's not an additional SKU, which is great. But yeah, it came out June of this year, one of those rare releases in between the major R1 and R2 releases in Workday. So how do you incorporate Workday data into slides? There's a few steps. So first of all, you need to have custom reports that are enabled for worksheets. And what you need to do is go to the Advanced tab on any custom report and there's a little checkbox that says Enable for Worksheets. Just make sure that checkbox is selected. Then you need to create worksheets with live data from those reports that you've enabled for worksheets. Then you can create pivot tables or define names within the data in your worksheets. Those are the primary data sources for data that you insert into slides. And you can use pivot tables, you can use those defined names, and you can create tables, you can create charts, you can create linked values within text. And I'll go through this in my demo. And then you're, able to add narrative and insight to that data, and you're able to copy these presentations and the underlying workbooks every week, day, month, period, whatever, cadence you'd like. And for me, coming from a financials background, I can see this, being really helpful for someone like FP&A, or financial planning and analysis department, where, in the past, I've seen them go into Workday, run a bunch of reports, export them to Excel, do their formatting, and then drop the charts or tables into a PowerPoint presentation. What this would allow them to do is kind of build all that out in Workday using worksheets and a slides presentation, and then just copy it from month to month and basically just refresh the data, and then, spend more time analyzing the data instead of kind of preparing it and putting it in a presentation. But certainly there's, a number of use cases for HCM and maybe even payroll as well. So I'm going to hop into a demo here, and I'm actually using Workday Slides right now. So I'm just going to hit escape, and you can see what this looks like. And I'm not sure with this WebSocket unavailable. I'm in my GMS tenant, so this isn't ERPA's environment. This is a fictitious Workday company, Global Modern Services. I'm going to hop out and hop back in because I don't know what that error was. But as you can see, Slides, it looks very similar to, an edit mode when you're in PowerPoint or when you're in Google Slides. See, here are the slides I've already gone through already. But I've got a couple blank slides here that I've teed up called income statement, gross profit trend, headcount, actual versus plan. And I'm just going to go through a demo of how to insert some data into these slides using worksheets. And again, I come from a financials background, so I'm gonna use some financials reports in this demo, but definitely keep in mind, you're able to use any custom report to bring in the data into worksheets and then, create charts or tables or linked values within slides. So just keep that in mind. So I'm gonna go into a worksheet I have set up here. It's called November. And what I've got here, I've got 3 tabs: an income statement, gross profit, and headcount tab. So those line up with those blank slides that I have in my presentation. So in this income statement tab, I've got an income statement composite report from Workday, and this is live data from Workday. And I can tell that it's live by this blue dotted line surrounding this report. So this report, as I mentioned, it's live data. I can look at the live data details. I can see the report name here. It's pulling in Global Modern Services data. The way I've got this report configured is it's bringing in data through the last closed period. So in this environment, in this GMS environment, the last closed period was November 2017. So it's bringing in data through November 2017. You can see I've got a year-to-date actuals column here, and then a prior year-to-date actuals column, and then couple variance columns here. So say I want to insert this report into my slides presentation. What I would do is just highlight the data within this live this live report here, and select data and define name. So I'm just going to call this IS for income statement, and I'm going to select define. Now, say in my slides presentation, I also want to call out a few of these variances here. The first might be sales. So my sales variance here. So year over year, sales increased 27.6%. So I'm just going to select this cell, and I'm going to hit, again, data, define name. And I'm going to name this sales change and click define. And say I also want to define a name for total operating expense changes. I'm going to do the exact same thing here. Select my total operating expense variance, select define name. I'm going to call this op expense change and click define. All right, so now over here on the right-hand side of the screen, I can see I've defined a few different ranges here. First is income statement, then I've got my sales change, and then the operating expense change. Now I'm going to move on to the gross profit tab. Now on this tab, I've got a matrix report that is pulling gross profit information, again, through the last close period, which is November. So it's bringing in data, gross profit data for each month through November. So in my slides presentation, I'm going to want to incorporate this data as well as a chart. So I'm going to highlight this area, and I'm going to actually highlight down to this last row, or this bottom row here, because I want to be able to incorporate December data once that is available. So I'm highlighting one row beneath this November row here, and I'm going to select, again, data, define name. I'm going to call this gross profit and select define. Now down here, I've got the exact same report that I'm using up here. You can see this report. If I look at the prompts over here to the right, I'm running this report current period year to date. This report, I'm just bringing in a time period of the last two periods. So I've got November and October data here, and then I've got a little Excel calculation here that's just calculating the percentage change from November to October. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to just define a name for this percentage change, so I'm able to use this data in my slides presentation as well. So I'm going to select data and then define name again. I'm going to just call this GP for gross profit change and select define. Now the last tab, I've got more of a management type report. It's bringing in some information by cost center, and it's got some headcount, so projected headcount, company headcount, which is actual headcount, and it's got some budget versus actual financial data here. But in this case, I'm not concerned with this financial data over here. I really just want to bring in headcount information. So within this live data, I can actually just select part of the data and again, click data and define name. And I'm just going to call this headcount and click define. So now you can see within this one November workbook with 3 tabs, I've got 6 different defined names. So now I'm going to jump back into the slides presentation, and I'm going to start to use this data within each of these slides. So first I've got this income statement slide here, and I want to insert a table very similar to how it looks in the worksheet. I want to insert that into this slide. So what I can do, I can select insert table, or down here, you can see these icons. I can just select the insert table icon. When I do that, I need to find the workbook, the worksheet that I was using, that I was defining those names, which is called November. So I'm going to select November. And then here I can see all of those defined names that I've already created in that November worksheet. So I'm going to select IS, and when I do that, you can see I get a nice little preview of the data over here. It's the income statement that I selected. So I'm going to go ahead and select insert. And now you can see it's inserted the report as a table into the slide. Now from here, I can do a little bit of formatting. I can highlight some rows and make them different colors. Let's see, or I could change the text color. Oh, here we go. I'm just going to make this row gray. But you can see this table is too long. It doesn't quite fit on the slide. So Workday's inserted this scroll bar so that I can scroll up and down to see all of the data. One of the things you can do with slides presentations, you can export these presentations to PDF and PowerPoint, which I'll show you here towards the end of the demo. But obviously when you do that, you lose this ability to scroll. And currently there isn't a way to reduce the size of these rows. So that's one consideration you need to keep in mind when you're building tables that are too long to fit on a slide. But for now, I'm just going to leave it like this. And I'm now going to actually insert some text. So I'm going to go to Insert Text, and it's inserted a little text box here. And I'm going to call out those sales and operating expense changes within some text here on this slide. So I'm going to add a bullet point and just say sales increased. And now I'm going to go ahead and insert a linked value. So I can use this insert linked value icon, or again, I can go to insert and say linked value. And here by default, it's bringing in the defined names from that worksheet that I used previously. So I'm going to select the sales change defined name, and I'm going to select this 27.6%. And now it's dropped this 27.6% that I defined in the worksheet within the text. And you can see Workday highlights it in blue, which just is an indication that this is a linked value from a worksheet. So sales increased 27.6% year over year. I'm going to do the same thing. Operating expenses increased. Again, I'm going to insert a linked value, operating expense change, select that, and insert it. Operating expense increased 8.8% year over year. And again, this is in blue when I'm in edit mode, but when I click present, you'll see that the blue goes away. And when I'm in present mode, I am able to scroll up and down in this table. But again, when it's exported to PDF or PowerPoint, you're not able to do this. I'm going to hit escape again, and I'm going to move on to our next slide. So here I inserted a table and some text with some linked values. Next, on this gross profit trend, I'm going to insert a linked chart. So I'm going to select the Insert Linked Chart icon here. And I'm going to select gross profit. And you'll see when I select gross profit, since I'm inserting a chart, it's giving me a little preview of a column chart. And I can also select this data tab, and it'll show the data within the range, this gross profit range. But I'm going to select insert. And you'll see once I've inserted this chart, I've got a number of new tabs that are that appear over here. The first is appearance, then data, then axis. Within here, there are a number of options. You can add a chart title. So I can call this gross profit trend. And you see it updates the chart here. Legend, so currently the legend's at the bottom. I can make it go to the top, left, right, remove it altogether. You can see up here, I can change the type of chart. So I'm actually going to make this a line chart, but you can see there are a number of options here. And I can also change the colors, not only in the chart, but throughout the presentation. If I go to File and Color Settings. So here, the primary color, as you can see from the top of each slide here, it's that blue, but I could change that to a different color. And down here is where I can change the colors that appear in my charts. So if I select a different color one here, it would make that line chart that red color that I selected. So there's a number of color options within slides as well. You can customize it to your organization's color palette. But if I go back to my chart options, I can also, select show points. If I move to the data tab, I can add a benchmark value. So in this case, if I want to just insert 10 million, it's going to insert a benchmark 10 million lined right through the middle there. Here I can edit the name of my data. So instead of seeing sum of ledger budget debit minus credit or credit minus debit, if I just want to call this gross profit, I can do that here by changing that and then selecting this blue check mark. Now you can see that's been updated. If I go to the axis, again, I can add an x-axis title, which is always a good idea. So I can call this month. Down here, I can say USD. And at the bottom of the y-axis, Workday is automatically defining this range, but I can change this. You can see it's going from 0 to 18 million. You can customize this if you want it to start at 6 million and go to 16 million. So you can see there are a number of ways you can customize these or alter the appearance. It's pretty straightforward, pretty easy to work with. But again, here I'm going to insert a little more context around this data, and I'm gonna bring in another text box and kind of do exactly what I did on the last slide, and just call out the gross profit change. So gross profit increased. And again, I'm going to insert a linked value, and I'm going to select that gross profit change figure that I defined within my worksheet. Gross profit increased 29.4% from the previous month. All right, I think that's all I wanted to do on this slide. So I'm going to move on to the headcount slide. And here I'm going to just insert another chart with some headcount data. So I'm going to click this insert linked chart icon, and I'll select my headcount data. And again, it's giving me a preview of this data in this preview window here. And I'm just going to select insert. And I think this actually looks pretty good. I think I'm just going to alter maybe one thing. Instead of having projected headcount and company headcount, I'm just going to change this so that it says actual headcount. Now, of course, I could go in and update the custom report and have it say actual headcount, but you can just do it within the slides presentation as well. Actual headcount. I'm going to select the blue check mark, and I'm ready to go. So again, these are all kind of financial scenarios here. Somebody from FP&A or a cost center manager might be interested in this data, but you are able to create these presentations with payroll and HCM reports as well, so that you can deliver it to those audiences. So the one thing that I also wanted to call out here, so I built this report, I built this presentation, it's called November. My underlying worksheet is also called November. And again, my reports are pulling based off of the last close period. So say again, I'm a financial analyst and November was closed, I created this presentation. Now December is closed. So I want to go ahead and create a December presentation. I can just copy this presentation, but I can also copy it with workbooks. So when I select this, you'll see copying in progress. This may take a few minutes. It's going to create a new slides presentation and a new worksheet that I can use to update with December numbers. So you can see the presentation and workbook was copied to Drive. So if I go back out to Drive, I can see it created this new November folder with a copy of my November slides presentation and worksheet. So I'm going to just rename this to December. Rename my worksheet to December. And rename the presentation to December. Now I'm going to update my ledger period. So before, the last period that was closed was November. I'm going to go ahead and close December. And I'm going to open up my December worksheet. So again, my reports are built off of the last close period. It's bringing in data through the last close period. So that was November, now it's December. So what I can do, I can refresh all of the data across every single tab in my worksheet by going to Data and Refresh All Live Data. And I can say okay here. So now these live data reports are refreshing, and it's going to bring in, it should bring in data through December. And as you can see, it did bring in data through December here, brought in data through December and here as well. Down here, it's looking at December and November. This formula updated with a new percentage change. So now what I can do, I can go into my December slides presentation. And over here, I can click this View Link Data button. And now I can see it's linked to this December worksheet. This is actually a link that I can select and it'll open up a new tab. But what I can do, I can select Refresh All. And now it's refreshing all of the data throughout the worksheet. And this little orange icon means data was changed when I just refreshed the slides presentation. So when I go here, I can see the table updated, these linked values within the text updated, my chart updated, again, this updated as well, and there's no change in the headcount data, so this stayed the same. So as you can see, this can be a very powerful tool for your organization if, whether you're using it for financials or HCM, I think there are a lot of great use cases out there. So I've got a few quick reminders for myself. So here I'm gonna show you what it looks like when you download a presentation. Again, you can download it to PDF or PowerPoint. I'm gonna select PowerPoint, and it's gonna say it could take a while depending on the size of your presentation. But I'm gonna let that download while I talk about a few other things here. I already touched on the linked data here. Sharing, so you can share these slides presentations with your colleagues, very similar to how you share a worksheet if you use that functionality. But you can just go up here and select share, and you can enter someone's name and you can give them view or edit access. Another thing I wanted to call out, up here within help, if you select help and then user guide, it opens up a PDF, a 9-page PDF that has a lot of really great helpful information if you're going to use this functionality. I strongly recommend that you review this document. It's extremely helpful, but it's nice that it's conveniently just up here. And they do update this PDF document. So now I can see my PowerPoint has downloaded, so I'm just going to open that and show you what that looks like. So as you can see in PowerPoint, it looks pretty good. The one thing that I will call out, you can't update the text within the PowerPoint presentation. Basically what Workday is doing right now is taking a screenshot of your slides and dropping it into a PowerPoint presentation. So that's kind of the downside right now. But other than that, it looks pretty good. Moving on to some other considerations here. I know we've only got a minute left. So this is the only place in Workday where you can change chart colors. There's a 100 slide limit to your presentations. They can contain up to 500 unique data items. In my example, I only have 6. And you can include up to 20 different worksheets In my example here, I've only got one worksheet, so you could link up to 20 different worksheets. And then when sharing slides, when you share the presentation, if the person you're sharing with doesn't have access to the underlying workbook, they won't be able to open the workbook. I've got some other links here that are very helpful. Documentation and community. There's a slides group. There's a really great HCM use case with slides here that organization has outlined in community. And then here's some high level just setup steps. It's very straightforward. You can definitely tackle this on your own, but if you need any help, feel free to reach out. This is my email address. You can visit our website. You can reach out to us a number of ways, but I'll distribute this presentation. I didn't get to the Q&A, but I'll be sure to look at those questions and address those. And thank you everyone for your time. Really appreciate it. Hope you learned something. Hope you're able to think through how you can start using slides at your organization. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.